Hi Bhagwan, how are you?
Hi Rohit. Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Can you please let me know about yourself and the technologies that you have been used so far?
Yes, myself Bhagwan Singh. I am having 7.5 year of experience as a Java full stack developer. So far, I have worked on in Java, Java 7 and Java 8, and Spring Boot microservices. And also, I have worked on the JPA, Hibernate. Okay, in front end side, worked on a Angular. Uh, Also worked on a JavaScript, jQuery. As well, I worked on a Kafka. Okay, and also worked on Docker, Kubernetes, and OpenShift.
Are you using JPA? If yes, then can you please let me know how to return a particular column from JPA without use of typed in mQuery?
Okay, so we can use at the rate query annotation in JPA. There we can define the queries that returns in a specific fields as a projection. But first we need to define, first we need to create a DTO class. There we can define fields that we want to returns. Like if suppose we let's create a DTO person class and wants to return fields like a name and salary. We'll create the methods there. Then we'll create a constructor and get a set of method there. Okay, and then we'll create a method inside an interface which extends to GP repository. Okay, and then this method will returns in a list of type object array. Okay, and then we will annotate this method with at the rate query annotation. There we can define a query like in a select name, comma, salary from person. The this name person will be in a DTO class name.
You said you also worked in Hibernate. Now, why you choose the SpringData JPA over Hibernate?
Actually, Spring Data JP offers the repository interface like in a JP repository and CRUD repository for basic operations. So it eliminates the need to write boilerplate code. We also don't need to write our own queries or even implement most of the data access method. So it automatically generate implementation for common database operations. Like we don't need to write save, find by ID, delete, but we can directly use them. Okay, and JPA supports custom query as well as we can type queries with method name like find by customer name or find by employee name, whatever you want. So Spring Boot also offer the auto configuration for Spring Data JPA, which simplify the setup and reduce the configuration overhead. This also comes with built-in supports for pagination and sorting. We just need to pass pageable and sort parameter like inside an interface which extends the JP repository just to have a methods like a find all. Okay, and with the parameter either in a pageable or in sort, or if you are giving a pageable, then it will return on a page of type in the entity whatever you want to return. Like if you're an employee, then will be an employee. And also in JPA, we don't need to create a session and entity manager instance manually. While in case of Hibernate, we need to create.
You said you are also using Spring Boot. So, are you using external configuration in your project? If yes, then can you please let me know what are the external configurations in Spring Boot and how did you implement?
Yes, we are using external configurations. Basically, it's a process to keep configuration parameter outside source code, so that we can use the same source code in different environment by changing configuration parameter instead of source code. Configuration parameter could be related to database like any username, password, or could be any URL, or could be related to logging. Okay, and we can also place there some server related details also there. There are four external sources for these configurations. First one is properties file, and second one is YML file, and then environment variables and command line arguments. In our applications, basically we are using YML files, okay, and also maintaining the file name with suffix, okay, as an environment variable, environment name, sorry. Suppose if the profile name is QA, then the file with suffix QA will be picked and will read properties from there. Okay, so based on the profiles, just picking, these files are similar with the properties file also. Okay, and in third way is the environment variables. If we are working in an Windows, then we can use the set commands, okay, to set the variables. And if you're working in a Linux, you can use an export command. Because we are using, the Docker and Kubernetes, so in config files we are setting those variables. And the fourth one is the command line arguments. Um, Suppose like to run in jar files, we use command, java -jar, then jar name, and there we can pass the value using hyphen properties and equals and then value. These are the four ways. And we have also created one applications which is nothing but config server, which is connecting with the Git repository, okay, and fetching the configurations file from there and then reading properties from there. To create this service, we have included one of the dependencies in POM file is Spring Cloud Config Server, and enable config servers by adding @enable config server annotation to our main application class. And then we configured our applications, application YML files to read from our Git repository. We have added properties like Git URI, username, and password, and also clone on starts true. Okay, and search path, which here we defined the repository, okay, in which we placed, the files. And we do have a client application also, like we included the dependencies in a POM Spring Cloud starter config. Okay, then configured our YML file, added properties, Spring config import, in value we are using config colon URI. URI basically the URL of our config server application. Okay, and then we are setting the profile, active profile value inside config file. Okay, with the commands java -jar and the jar file name and this property, profile active profile properties. Um, yeah.
Okay, you said you worked in Angular. Can you please let me know how you are handling HTTP request in Angular?
Okay, to handle HTTP request in Angular, first we are importing HTTP client module in app module. Okay, an app module component. Then we created one service which basically handling, all HTTP requests, and there we are injecting HTTP clients, the service. Okay, that will make call to the backend. Okay, and suppose we have to make, the get request to the backend. Um, and for that, first we are creating HTTP header, okay, inside a method like to get an entity. What we are doing, we have created a method like get entity, okay, and then there we defines the header, and then um, in headers pass some details, okay, and then we'll calling like this dot http dot get, and the type also, type we are giving any, okay, and then passing the URL, okay, then comma, and then passing header inside in curly braces, okay. For the post request, we are also creating an HTTP header, okay, and then calling the post, okay, with HTTP like in this.http.post and define the type, okay, then passing the URL, then comma data basically in a payload, and then comma and this inside curly braces we are passing an header. Okay, so in case of a post, okay, this payload data we are sending from the components, like when we are creating a transaction in our application for manual capture, we are just creating a payload based on the data entered by the user, and then making a call to the method which is created inside any service um, from the component from manual capture components. Okay. Yeah, this is the way. And also for get request also we are calling this method, this getter methods which created inside in a service like in a get entity from multiple components, okay, in our applications. Okay, and for this also we are maintaining cache.
Okay, are you creating separate Angular module for each module for your application? If yes, then what's the benefit of this and how to use with other module also? Can you please explain also like how do you configure child routing module?
Yes, we are creating benefit of this which I observed. This helps to organize the code better, which makes easier to navigate and maintain. It also support, I think, a lazy loading, where we can load specific modules only when needed. Uh, this also reduce the initial loading time of application and enhance performance. So module can be reused also across different part of application and reduce redundancy. Okay, this is what I observed if I'm talking about the benefits. Okay, and then for each modules, we have created separate Angular modules and specify, the export keyword before a module name, so that we can import in other module of the application and can reuse those modules. Okay, and then we are also specifying all the components, okay, related to that modules inside declaration array. I'm talking about these separate modules that we are creating for each, okay, module. So basically we call it as the child module. Okay, we are configuring child routing modules also. Okay, like we are creating a separate routing module, child routing module. Okay, there we are taking array of type routes. Okay, and passing objects in the array, and each object contains information about route's path and component. And then define this routing module inside created child module, imports array. Then we are loading this module lazily, okay, from the route module. Sorry, from the root module. For that we are using load children. Okay, like we are passing as an object. Okay, first parameter. Sorry, first property is an path. Okay, and then second one is the load children. Load children. Okay, which basically dynamically load the specified module um, when the user navigate to the route. Okay, and there we are using import, and inside an import we are passing path of a module. Okay, then calling a then function. Okay, there we are specifying, okay, module, which one basically used to extract a module from a specified path.
Okay. Can you please let me know what Spring annotations you used in your project?
Okay, I have used at the rate component, at the rate autovoid, and at the rate service, at the rate repository, and at the rate REST controller, and at the rate request mapping, and at the rate get mapping, at the rate post mapping, at the rate put mapping, and at the rate delete mapping, and at the rate configuration, at the rate mean, at the rate value, at the rate configuration properties, and at the rate post construct also, and at the rate transactional as well, and at the rate uh, pre-destroy.
Okay. What is profile in Spring Boot and how to active profile?
Okay, the profiles are the group of configuration properties. Basically, these configuration properties, I think, belongs to any specific environments. Okay, as we know, in each environment there are some properties which are different, and like in a database, okay, in each, like in an environment, SIT, dev, and prod, the database URL, username, and password will be different. Okay, and or there could be some properties which is are application specific, could be in a different in each environments. Okay, and if think of it like we do have an environments like dev, SIT, and prod, then we create environment specific properties file or YML file. Like for dev, we create application hyphen dev.property file, and for SIT, application hyphen SIT dot properties file, and for application, and for prod, application hyphen prod dot properties file. And so to create an environment specific file, basically we need to create a file with suffix of environment name. Okay, and keep these environment related properties there. Like DB related properties, we will keep inside an application hyphen temp dot properties. Okay, and here the key will be common in all properties file, value will differ only. Okay, and if we do have only application.properties file or YML file, then we will consider this as a default profile. Okay, there are some ways to activate the profiles. Okay, either we can add one, a kind of property inside, application.properties file or application.yml file, like spring.profiles.active equals in environments. It could be in a dev, SIT, or prod, or any other environments that we use. Okay, and or we can active profiles through command line, like in our config files, because we are deploying our application in okay, we are basically using a Docker and Kubernetes, so we do have a config file for each environment, different config file for each environment, and there we are um, just executing a jar with Java hyphen jar and then jar name, and after that we are adding hyphen hyphen Spring profiles dot active, and then the environment. Okay, if the config file is for dev, then we are passing the dev, and if for prod, and then prod. If QA, then QA. Okay, and third way is with the environment variables, and we can set an environment variable, like in the environments, with like if we are There are three. I think if we are working in a Linux, then we can use an export, okay, command there, and then pass Spring underscore profiles underscore active equals environment's name, or you can just pass. Sorry, not any Spring underscore. It's just an Spring dot profiles dot active, and then pass the environment variable. Environment name it could be an dev, prod, and QA. Or we can use programmatically, or also we can pass in the environment, okay, to active the profiles. Like in a man application, Spring man applications, we can set sorry, not an application, so I'm talking about the main class of an Spring Boot. Inside the main methods, we can just call and set additional profiles with Spring application class, Spring application dot set additional profiles, and then pass the environment. Okay, one more way is also to add at the red profile and provide the environment name. Okay, like a deb, sit, and prod, and but it should be used with the annotation at the red configuration or at the red component with the class.
Okay. Why do we need Kafka and what are the components of Kafka?
Okay, handling high volume of data. Um, if we have a system where lots of data is generated, okay, all the times, such as user activities on a website, so financial transactions or in a sensor data from IoT devices. If we try to handle, all this data using traditional database or a system, they might become slow. Okay, second use case is real-time data processing. Okay, if we are analyzing website traffic, Kafka can stream the data as it's generated and instantly process it to give us a live analytics. Like how many peoples are on our websites right now, okay, and decoupling different systems, okay, in large applications, a different part of a system needs to communicate with each other, okay. So Kafka acts as a messaging brokers which sends a message between different part of a system without them needing to be tightly connected, okay. When a user makes a purchase, think, okay, in one scenario, if I'm talking like when a user makes a purchase on a e-commerce sites, Kafka send a message to both inventory system to update the stock and notification system to send a confirmation email, all in a real time. Okay. Otherwise, without Kafka, how they would have been communicate like using a REST API. Okay, I'm not talking only about the Kafka, like in a messaging system. Without messaging system, they used to then the services would have been communicate with REST API. Okay, which makes a system tightly coupled. Um, and next use case is fault tolerance. In Kafka, as we know, the data replicated in multiple broker. So if any of the broker is goes down, then we are not going to lose the data. It still can retrieve the data. Okay, and another use case is the scalability. Okay, Kafka is designed to scale easily as the application grows. In a microservices world, the services increase. Okay, so we can add more Kafka server to handle increasing amount of data. And talking about the components, first one is the producer, and then consumer, broker, topic, and partition. And producer basically used to send a message to the topic. And before sending a message, this producer basically convert message into bytes. Um, and this is also decide how it want to send the message, like using a key partitioning strategy or not. And if it's passed the value for it's passed the key, then the message goes into the particular partition, okay, stored in a sequence, okay, like in a hash map. The message is goes into a linked list if having the same linked list manners, okay, like in a, if having a same hash code value. Okay, if not passing the key, and then the message is stored in a partition, and basically the broker decide using round robin algorithms in which partitions message will go. Okay, and the consumer basically consume the messages from the topic, and then this subscribe the topic. Okay, and consumer group having a multiple consumers. Okay, and each consumer read the messages from one partition. Okay, like in within the same group, consumer group, or more than one consumer cannot read from the same partition. Okay, also the consumers maintain the offset, okay, value. Like if something goes wrong, then it restart the read from previous partition. And now the broker. On the broker, basically, it's a Kafka server that store and manage the Kafka topics in partitions. A Kafka cluster typically, consists of multiple brokers working together to provide high availability and fault tolerance. Okay, and broker store messages in partition and handle a replication to ensure fault tolerance. Each Kafka broker are responsible for set of partitions. Okay, what partitions can be replicated across multiple brokers, okay, to provide data redundancy. And coming to the topic, this is basically a logical channel name to which producer send messages, from which consumer read the messages. Okay, take an example like in a Paytm's having a multiple features. Okay, like we can book the ticket of movie ticket, as well as we can book the ticket. We can book a flight ticket. Also, we can make the transactions from Paytm, or can do some recharge or something. What each features, having a separate topic, so like kind of category. Okay, separate category. So and the message related to each category goes into a separate topics. Okay. Um, yeah, in partitioning, basically, the topics further divided into the partition. Okay, and each partition is distributed across Kafka brokers. Okay, first one we are using a functional interface, and the scenario in which like the multiple classes implements the interface, and then in some of the classes required to add some more features. In that case, to provide backward compatibility, we just added some default method inside the interface. Okay, and then we are using in those classes which required that particular features, and basically it does not force others classes to override unnecessary override the newly added methods in a interface. Okay, and we are also using the lambda expression to provide the implementation of like a functional interface. And also we are using the stream API. Okay, it's basically to do some operations on a collection of elements, or some array, and also we are working with the files, so we are using their stream API also. Okay, as already I told you, we are using the default method. Okay, to support to provide backward compatibility, and we are also using method references. Okay, just calling in a method using a shorthand syntax like in a double colon. Okay, and and other features we are using like an optional class we are using. Okay, to avoid null pointer exception and unnecessary null check, because in some of the classes we need to put the check on a multiple properties. Okay, null check. So to avoid that, we are using an optional, and also to avoid null pointer exception, because it has some handy the methods. Okay, so we are using all those methods. Okay, and we are also using the datetime API. Okay, because in datetime API in Java 8 are immutable, okay, or thread ships. So that's why we are using, and it's easy to use. Okay, that's what we are using um, in our application.
Okay. I have shared a program in a chat. Can you please create a map from a list of employee where key will be employee ID and value will be an employee object, and also handle a duplicate keys.
Okay, first to convert list into a map, first we need to call an stream function, okay, to get the stream from a list, like a list.stream. Then we'll call a collect function to collect stream of elements, okay. And we wants to convert into a map, then we'll use two map function like a collectors.toMap. Okay, the first arguments will be a key of a map, and as you mentioned, like key will be an employee ID. Okay, so we'll call using method references employee double colon then get employee ID. Okay, and then the second parameter will be in a comma, and second parameter employee object itself, like an employee arrow and employee. Then put comma, and then the third parameter will be a merge function. Okay, in merge function we'll pass like an old comma new and arrow and new means we'll replace the old value with the new value if key will be a duplicate. Okay, and okay, if an id is of type an integer, so it will returns like a map of type integer comma and employee. Okay, and we can use a for each loop to print this map, or we can, like, one way is to call like just in a for each map dot for each. Okay, pass key and comma value and then arrow, and then we can print. And another way is to print it like using a entry set functions, like a map dot entry set and then dot stream, and then we can call it for each, and then we can print it. Okay, this is what a way. uh, yep.
Okay. How you are implementing unit test case using Mockito and JUnit 5?
Okay, we are using annotation at the rate extend with and passing Mockito extension dot class on top of test class. Okay, and then we are using at the rate mock annotation with the class which needs to be inject into an class like in a controller. If a service class needs to inject, then using in a service class with at the rate mock annotation. Okay, then we are using at the rate inject mocks annotation for the controller, which will create an instance of a controller. Okay, then taking the two variables of like for mock MVC and for object mapper, and then we are using at the rate before each annotation with the method in which we are um, um, creating an instance of the mock MVC, basically initializing the mock MVC and mock object mapper. Okay, then we are creating an methods and annotating that with at the test annotation, and then we are populating the bean like in a DTO class with the values. Like there are some fields like an ID, name, payment, or something like that needs to add those values into that the model class. Okay, now we are then we are writing mock test case like in a when user service dot like for entity like in a get entities, and then dot then returns and then the list dot of suppose we are returning in a multiple entities, then passing more than one entity. And then we are mocking get request and verifying the results like mock mbc dot perform and get slash get entities, and expect status dot is okay. Okay, and we are checking the entity name like the value with the entity something like US. Okay, and one more entity like UK. Okay, um, and then we are verifying that service method was called or not. So like with verify methods. Okay, passing the instance of a user service and then calling comma times one dot get all entities. Okay, This is what a way we are implementing the unit test cases. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I have done with the interview. Thanks for giving your time, Bhagwan. HR will get back to you.